This time I got a Sony TCDD7 DAT Walkman. This one's got the classic gummed up mechanism problem that all these machines have. Usually you can just lubricate them and they start to work, but not always. Sometimes you've got broken plastic parts, because when you have a frozen mechanism and plastic gears, something's going to give. So what's happening on this is, sounds like the classic mechanism's gummed up. You can hear it trying to do something, but the mechanism is operated by the capstan motor. And if the capstan motor isn't able to turn, then it can't operate the mechanism. And typically it's the guideposts that get gummed up on this unit. These are real fun units to work on, just because when you've got them apart, they're quite difficult to try to work on, just because of the way that they're designed. But the only thing worse to work on than camcorders is these. Not a fun machine at all to work on. More time gets wasted trying to set these machines up. Got the lid off. As you can see, the guides are in the loaded position. Typically it's the hinge points down in here that get gummed up and they just can't turn. And if we can get these to unstick, then we can get the mechanism to operate again. But right now the guides are all stuck because the mechanism, the grease is dried up on the mechanism and it can't turn anything, and that's where the fault is on these. Usually that's where the fault is on these. You gotta be really careful with this ribbon connector on the back here, because there's not much in the way of slack for it. So I got the mechanism slowly unwound. I had to disconnect everything here. I haven't pulled everything apart yet. I'm trying to avoid that if possible. It's going to get some lubricant down into this guide here that gets jammed. There's a post right here that it gets dried up and gets stuck, and that's usually the one that causes all the trouble. If I can get this one to be free, then everything might start to work as it's supposed to. And of course we'll put some lubricant on the rest of the mechanism too. The other guides that get stuck as well. But this one over here is the one that causes the most headaches. Once I disconnect the board to get to the mechanism, I can't operate it. I can't operate it with anything disconnected, so you got to disconnect these ribbon cables in order to remove the board, so that you can see the mechanism underneath. These wires are hard soldered down. Right? There's 4 wires that are connected to the digital output. Looks like they're connected to the digital remote for remote control, wired remote control. They go up to the button plate. So you can't even remove the cover off of it because those wires don't unplug. They're soldered down. You see what I mean? There's another connector on the back here. This is what controls the mechanism. It's all done through this. The capstan motor drives the gears through this cam assembly, this cam gear, and it gets gummed up. So this is what we have to unstick, is this cam gear. And work it back and forth with some lubricant into it. I just have to do this several times with some lubricant in here just to get the mechanism to free up. Got a drop of oil. I'm just going to put a little more in here. Put a little bit onto this. You can see which one I'm putting it on. I don't want to bend these cables too much, but this one right down there, that's one. The other one is over in behind here. It's right down in here, if I can see it. The other one I got to lubricate is right down here. This one right there. I want to get some lubricant inside here so that it gets down into this bearing in here. Because these are the ones that get tight. The lubricant that was in there at the factory from years of disuse dries out. This is why they tell you when you've got these devices to operate them on a regular basis. Like, even if you don't plan on using it, load a tape at least once a month. If we look down in here, you'll see that these other guides all move freely. Like this one here, there's nothing sticking here. There's nothing sticking on this one. This one here is free as well. After working the lubricant into that bearing, it's now, everything's nice and butter smooth now. So I think I'll just flip the board back in and reconnect some stuff and see whether it is going to operate now. It should open it up, which it does. So let's try a tape and see if it works. That doesn't sound good. I think there's more problems than just the guides being frozen. We'll have to do some more investigating on this one. A little more involved now. This entire mechanism is completely seized up. Like, that is really stiff. Lever sticking. The hubs are seized up too. What else is wrong with this thing? That hub is just gummed up like you wouldn't believe. There, now it's turning free. But it sure wasn't before. Pull the cut wash off here and take a look underneath here. Oh yeah, gummed up right in here. That pin right there is all jammed up. Clean that out and see what happens. These are precision parts, and they were an assembly, so you can't just buy the individual parts. Of course, you can't get these things now, so all we can do is to try to free them up when they're seized. This is really seized up well, this one. Get some alcohol down here to try to clean out the old grease and the old lubricant, and then get some oil under here just to free it up and try to get some into the bearing itself, because that's about all I can do on this. So try to get some new oil in there to free this up and stop it from sticking. That's a lot better right there so far. Yeah, that's better. Much better. This is the clutch that operates the cam gear here to load and unload the tape. Right, and then it goes back the other way. This is the little cam that operates it. There's a spring on here as well. This is the piece I wanted to avoid taking off if possible, just because it's just so damn hard to get the alignment back on this once you take it apart. But when it's gummed up like this, you don't have a lot of choice, because this one's in pretty rough shape. All these metal parts that have to move back and forth get stuck. Usually it's just the one main post that goes bad on them, but this one here has been sitting around so long that the lubricant is just turned into a glue. But I hope that this cam is not broken, that's all. This cam gear here could break. And I hope it's not, because that is a part that would not be obtainable. Incidentally, the tape hubs are different. The take up and supply, they look the same. The gear is a little thinner on one because it has less resistance. The thinner one goes on the take up side. So if you get them mixed up, you're going to end up buggering up your tapes. That's why when I took them off, I put them left and right to indicate which was the take up and which was the supply. So when I put them back on, I would put them on the same way they came off. Getting a close look at the cam gear here to see if this gear is damaged in any way. Is that a piece missing from it there? It might be damaged right there. When you're aligning the mechanism, you got a top and a bottom cam gear. In the stop position, the unloaded position, this is about where it's going to be. Right? You notice the timing mark facing this way. And there's a space here where there's like a free space between the a little bit of slack here. In approximately this position, you're going to put it about midway between the resistance. You can feel the resistance here about halfway, so about right about there. That is where that gear goes. And the cam gear on the bottom, this is the position it is in. There's a little triangle here. It's hard to see, but it points towards the chassis. It's right up to about here. There's an opening right here on the chassis. This little timing mark is going to line up almost with that little line right there. And got it right about like that. Mode switch. That's all nice and smooth. Now I'm going to drop the mechanism again. Hopefully everything is aligned properly. Gonna pull the spring over here again. Okay, mechanism's back in. It's like it's not turning anything. I think it might be this little gear underneath here is stripped. You can see the gear not turning. Oh, shit. When the motor turns, it turns this gear. So the motor turns this gear, which turns this gear, which turns this gear. This gear turns this gear here. And this midway gear is what drives both the upper and the lower cam, but they're not moving. I can hear like it's like the teeth are slipping on this one, but it's in place. All right, careful examination. Do you see the problem, Houston? I see the problem. There's teeth missing off of this gear. Right there. So what happens is this gear, I'm wondering why I was seeing this thing spin, but this one, the cam gear wasn't moving. This gear's got a tooth missing off of it. You see? So what happens is when it hits that dead spot, it just sits and spins forever. And it can't move the cam gear. Guess I gotta find a new gear for this. It's gonna be fun. This cam also looks like it could be damaged right there. This is what happens when the mechanisms get all gummed up and motors try to move things, right? And you get plastic gears and pieces break. I thought it was going to be an easy one. It was just going to be the good old classic, which is what happens on all these. The mechanism gets stuck. And as you can see, I got that part working. That part's all working nice and easy. Now I was wondering, why the hell is this thing still not working? Because this now turns extremely easily. No resistance whatsoever. That part's working. Got a broken gear. This might become a two-parter. I'm going to have to look. I think I've got another scrap machine kicking around here that is beyond repair. I'll have to go look and see if I've got it still. I had a parts machine that was around here for a while, but I don't know whether I've still got it or not. I'll have to go look for that. Anyway, I'm going to make this a two-parter. So we're going to close this one off now. I've spent way too much time on this thing. You know how long I've been on this thing? Too many hours for what I'm going to make on this. Well, I'm not going to make any money on this. Even if I get it going, I'm not going to make any money. But I'm going to end this one now, and we'll pick this up on part 2 if I can find a gear. So until next time, catch you later.